Welcome back to Transcriber from Reddit. Today's topic comes from the subreddit WomenInNews, posted by user Catnamaria. The post is a linked post titled Georgia Maternal Mortality Board Dissolved Over Report on Abortion Ban Deaths. And we see that it links to truthout.org. I can see the pro-life slant on this. They were denied access to an abortion, but they were denied access because they chose the wrong procedure, and that's why they're dead. Even some of the most sympathetic pro-lifers will say, we're sorry that they're dead, but they went about the wrong way of doing this. I want to note that in the case of Amber Thurman, there's controversy over whether or not she even took the pill. As it was a statement made by her to the investigating police detective, and later on, she took back that statement. There's no documentation supporting it. Also, even when someone is participating in abortion, wouldn't the life of the person, yes, despite them having an abortion, still be worth saving? Unfortunately, it seems that pro-life people are leaning more into the camp of, if you attempt an abortion, no life-saving medical care for you. Which is really sad to see. And say that you're against abortion and against people having abortions at all costs. It's still important to know for everybody and just for the continuation of the human race in general, what happens when pregnant women die. The facts of the case. Even everything that's alleged or not alleged or said and then taken back, all of those important pieces are necessary to determine, was the death preventable? Because in medicine, the first oath is to do no harm. And the cases of both these women, Amber Thurman and Candy Miller, harm was done. They are dead. All because of restrictive laws that make medical personnel fear that they could be liable for lawsuits that they can't afford, and loss of their license, which they also can't afford and their patients can't afford. There were pro-life people like myself who were duped into believing that yes, Roe v. Wade, once it's overturned, everything will get better. And now it is just getting worse for women. It's not fair to any pregnant person out there, regardless of race and regardless of whether or not they can have the baby, whether they want the baby, or whether they're suffering through a miscarriage. It's not worth the lives that are being racked up right now to try and legislate the abortion issue. It is not. If we really care about all lives, then we're seeing the consequences of what happens when we prioritize lives of the unborn and the medical licenses and people who think that they know what's going on and ignore the consults and the information from medical personnel on how to better write laws. And we're seeing the bodies stack up right now. And that is not fair to them, it's not fair to their kids, and it's not fair to their loved ones. I certainly hope this fight continues, because what we're seeing right now is absolutely a miscarriage of justice. And unfortunately, justice is declared dead because even medical personnel wouldn't dare revive justice until they were sure that they were safe from any incoming lawsuits. Here, back at the truthout.org article, I continue reading. Said to me, quote, confidential information provided to the Maternal Mortality Review Committee was inappropriately shared with outside individuals. Even though this disclosure was investigated, the investigation was unable to uncover which individuals, note that the S is in parentheses, so as to describe individual versus individuals, disclosed confidential information. Therefore, effective immediately, the current MMRC is disbanded and all member seats will be filled through a new application process. End quote. Side note, I'm not sure what she's referring to when she says inappropriately shared with outside individuals. Was this meant to be kept top secret? Was this meant to be hidden and only available for representatives to access? Also, since this seems to be the first time it's happened, why not a smaller penalty? Especially considering there were 2 deaths that were reviewed, and there's always the possibility of more deaths happening. So why not slap a warning on the board as a whole and have them continue to investigate the deaths, especially since it sounds like it's been relatively the same people investigating the deaths for the past however many years. Also, what's missing here is how long will the new application process take? Being able to investigate deaths of pregnant women is a time-consuming process, and it is absolutely worthy of investigation and continued investigation. Regardless of whether or not you agree that the people should have leaked the details about the 2 Georgia women deaths, we should all agree that the deaths of pregnant women should be investigated, and that even if the committee members did something wrong, they should at least still be working and still be processing information for their replacements. You should not be disbanding them, because that means whatever backlog of information that is there for the new member seats, when they get filled, when they come in, all of that information that is backlogged, it'll take them more time and more effort to go through. And pregnant women and the people that they're bringing in or not bringing in deserve better. I continue reading. Toomey added that there might be new procedures, quote, for onboarding, parentheses, new, and parentheses, committee members, end quote, in the future. In response to concerns over how long the committee would not exist, Toomey admitted that it could be several weeks before officials start reviewing applications for a new commission. Side note, again, weeks at the very minimum. It's a government position. It can take, at the minimum, weeks if they actually have people working night and day to get these positions filled. But it could take up to months if they don't have qualified candidates, and that all depends on what they view as qualified candidates. Pregnant women deserve better, especially since what happens to them now will ultimately, and probably sadly, be the bar that's held for future pregnant women. They deserve better and more, and they're not getting it in Georgia. I continue reading. Every state has a board overseeing pregnancy deaths that is similar to Georgia's Maternal Mortality Review Committee, and since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the abortion protections established by Roe v. Wade, several states have politicized their boards, linked here. In Texas, for example, an individual was recently appointed to the state board who has previously stated their belief that embryos have personhood rights and that children as young as 9 years old can safely carry a pregnancy to term. And in Idaho, the state board was dissolved last year when Republicans in the state legislature failed to renew legislation keeping it in place. Parentheses, the Idaho board was only reestablished in the past month, in parentheses. Side note, probably reestablished only because of the reporting and the outcry from people about the board being dissolved, which good on you for getting that board back up and running. Everybody else, take notes, because this could happen in your state. I continue reading. After the publication of the ProPublica article, the 2 deaths in Georgia made national headlines and became a central part of the presidential campaign, with Vice President Kamala Harris including Thurman's story in a television ad featuring her family members, who cast blame on former President Donald Trump for appointing the Supreme Court justices who dismantled federal abortion protections. Several abortion rights advocates condemned Toomey for her apparent retaliatory action against the Georgia Maternal Mortality Review Committee. Quote, "They did what they were supposed to do. This is why we need them," end quote, said Monica Simpson, linked here, executive director of Sister Song, a reproductive justice organization that amplifies the voices of Black and Indigenous women. Quote, "To have this abrupt disbandment, my concern is what we are going to do, what we are going to lose in the process, in terms of time and data," end quote. Alicia Stallworth, director of Georgia campaigns at Reproductive Freedom for All, described Toomey's move as, quote, "a scare tactic meant to stop full investigations into the circumstances of pregnant women's deaths across the state," end quote. Linked here. Quote, "Now more than ever, it's important to mobilize against anti-abortion extremists like Governor Kemp, who are responsible for these deadly bans," end quote, Stallworth added. Quote, "This is yet another attempt to conceal the deadly consequences of Georgia's Republican abortion ban," end quote, Democratic Representative Nikema Williams said in a statement. Linked here. Quote, "Coupled with the silencing of experts on maternal health, this move threatens Georgia's ability to tackle systemic inequities that have plagued our healthcare system for far too long," end quote. Jessica Valenti, a journalist who covers abortion, expressed skepticism regarding any board Georgia lawmakers establish in the future. Quote, "I guarantee you that when Georgia replaces those seats on the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, they're going to put anti-abortion activists on there," end quote, Valenti wrote on X. Linked here. Here's another ad requesting for donations for Truth Out. Here ends the article. Here it reads, "The article is licensed under Creative Commons, CC BY-NC-ND 4.0, end parentheses, linked here, and you are free to share and republish under the terms of the license." On Blue Sky, we created a starter pack to make it easy for you to follow Truth Out folks there, linked here. And underneath that, we see the author's bio, Chris Walker. Chris Walker is a news writer at Truth Out and is based out of Madison, Wisconsin. Focusing on both national and local topics since the early 2000s, he has produced thousands of articles analyzing the issues of the day and their impact on the American people. He can be found on most social media platforms under the handle @ThatChrisWalker. Moving back up to the start of the article. All right, that takes us to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The article here is titled, "They were tasked to investigate deaths of pregnant women. Georgia dismissed them all." I'm going to stop here and go back to read the other article. I do want to note that this is a credible source, and everyone, regardless of where they lean politically or religiously, should be very concerned about what the state of Georgia is doing and has done, and how that will affect the outcomes of pregnant women in 2025. Moving over to truthout.org. Again, we see the same title, tagged under News Reproductive Rights. Georgia Maternal Mortality Board dissolved over report on abortion ban deaths. Subtitled, one critic described the move as an, quote, attempt to conceal the deadly consequences, unquote, of Georgia's abortion ban. Written by Chris Walker on November 25th, 2024. Below that, we see an image of a middle-aged white woman with blonde hair standing at a podium. The caption for the photo reads, Georgia Department of Public Health Commissioner Dr. Kathleen Toomey answers questions during a press conference at the Georgia State Capitol on April 27, 2020, in Atlanta, Georgia. Sourced by Kevin C. Cox, Getty Images. Before the article, there's a blurb about donating so that there's paywall-free news. I read the article. A commission of health experts in Georgia was disbanded earlier this month following national reporting on its findings that 2 state residents died because they were denied access to an abortion. Kathleen Toomey, Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Health, dismissed every member of the Maternal Mortality Review Committee, which is charged with examining and determining the causes of pregnant people's deaths in the state. The dismissal was reported late last week. The decision to dismiss the board's membership was prompted by reporting from ProPublica, Toomey explained in a statement, which had published an article in September about the deaths of Amber Thurman and Candy Miller, linked here, 2 pregnant women who died as a result of Georgia's abortion ban. After failing to determine whether any member of the board had provided ProPublica with the details of those individuals' deaths, Toomey said she made the decision to disband the board completely. Side note, before I continue reading on, I will also click on the link where it talks about the Maternal Mortality Review Committee being dismissed. Thank you for watching/listening, and I will see you in the next video.
Leave the hurt behind, tearing the threads of the tether.